It was a quiet evening when James finally asked the question that had been sitting heavy on his chest for months. He and his wife, Clara, sat across from each other at the dinner table, the room dimly lit by the overhead lamp. The meal was untouched, his fork resting against the plate as he looked into her eyes. "Clara," he said softly, "why did you marry me?" He expected warmth, perhaps a smile, maybe even a simple answer about love or companionship. But her response came cold, sharp, and without hesitation. "Because I thought you'd be easy, safe. Someone I wouldn't have to try too hard with." The words struck him like a blade, crueler than she could have imagined. James sat back in his chair, the silence between them louder than her confession. His chest tightened, but instead of anger, a calm clarity washed over him. He didn't shout, didn't accuse, didn't even ask for an explanation. He simply nodded, as if filing away the truth she had finally revealed. For the rest of the evening, he said little, listening quietly as she carried on, oblivious to the weight of her own words. When Clara went to bed, James stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, his mind racing but his face composed. He knew then that their marriage had been built on illusions, not love. And he decided his response would not be a fight. It would be something she never expected. The next morning, James rose early, made coffee, and carried himself through the routine as though nothing had changed. Clara noticed nothing unusual, assuming her words had slipped past him without consequence. But behind his calm eyes, James was already making plans. He began focusing his energy on work, long hours that turned into promotions and recognition. He spent evenings at the gym, rebuilding his strength, both physically and emotionally. He reconnected with old friends, nurturing bonds he had once neglected for the sake of his marriage. And all the while, Clara carried on, unaware of the quiet transformation unfolding beside her. Weeks turned into months, and James grew more confident, his presence stronger, his silence louder. Clara, meanwhile, began to notice the subtle distance, the way his attention no longer revolved around her. She asked questions, half-heartedly, but he gave only polite, measured answers. The cruel sentence she had once spoken replayed in her mind, but she never admitted regret. Until the day James stood before her, suitcase in hand, calm as ever. "Clara," he said evenly, "you married someone easy, safe. But I'm not that man anymore." Her eyes widened, panic flashing across her face as the reality of his words settled in. "Wait, what are you saying?" she stammered, her voice trembling. James held her gaze, unwavering, and replied, "I'm saying I'm done being the person you thought I was. I deserve more." The quiet power in his voice shook her more than shouting ever could. He walked out the door without slamming it, leaving behind only silence and the echo of her cruel confession. For Clara, the shock of his calm revenge came not in anger or betrayal, but in dignity and finality. And for James, the moment marked not just the end of a marriage, but the beginning of freedom. He built a life on self-respect, strength, and truth, proving that sometimes the greatest revenge is living better without the person who underestimated you.